Welcome to Keep Connected. I am David Siegel. In today's episode, we talk to JeVon McCormick. He's the author of Modern Leader, number 3 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. This is someone who was ranked as the top CEO in Austin, someone who grew up in a very different life than he leads right now, and understand how he got there. You're going to learn a lot in today's episode. Hope you enjoyed as much as I did. JeVon, welcome.
My man, what's going on?
Okay, I love talking to you the first time we met, and I was just blown away because one of the things of how I personally define like success is not kind of where you are, but it's kind of where you started off, where you are right now, and the difference between the two. You know, so often some people say to me things like, David, you're so successful. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I grew up in a wealthy area. I went to a private school. I had tremendous amounts of privilege and opportunity, and I'm doing a lot of the things that a lot of those people ended up having a very easy path to. You did not. You are like my definition of success of like where you had, started off in life, though obviously with some incredible DNA and perseverance, and where you are now, it's like, wow. So let's just start off with a little bit about JeVon, childhood, teenage years. Talk to us a little bit and we'll go from there.
So let me hit on that for a second, man, because what I also find interesting is when people start talking about success, and I feel what's happened in our society is we've started allowing other people to define success for us. Some people may define success as I make $36,000 a year and I live in a tiny house out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, great. If that's your definition, beautiful. But what if, we so often look at money and, material things. And so, but what if I'm on the Forbes 400, but my definition of success was to be a phenomenal father, and I've been an absent father and I've not been around. So am I successful or am I just wealthy? And so where I really get caught up in that sometimes is people will look at me and say, oh my God, he's so successful. By what measure? Because unless you ask me what my definition of success is, I actually may not be a success. Now,
I think I need to ask you that then. So let's start with that. JeVon's definition of success. I love what you're saying, because the reality is, someone could be, their entire goal is to be a great parent. And nothing else matters. And that's beautiful. And for them, that's the success, and all power to them. So let's hear your definition of success, please. Clearly, it's not materialistic, but please.
Now, actually, part of it was.
Okay, good, let's hear it.
Well, because for me, at 10 years old, and we can get into the story, and we'll talk about success and how I define that. So to your point, my dad was a black pimp and drug dealer back in the 1970s. He put women on a street corner. They sold their bodies, and my dad took every dollar. My mom, my dad was black, my mom was white, and my mom was a prostitute. And so go a little deeper with my mom, she also was raised in an orphanage. So 1950s institutional orphanage. When she turned 17 years old, they gave her $20, a small suitcase, and said, good luck, there's the world. She'd never even seen a street light. And so, my dad also along the way managed to father 23 children. So I'm one of 23. So that's when I came into the world. I mean, I'm 50 now. I was born in 1971. I don't have to tell the listeners who were alive during that time period, being mixed race in the 70s, not a good look. Black people didn't like me because I was half white. White people didn't like me because I was half black. And you run into this identity crisis. You're trying to be accepted. You're trying to be welcomed. You're trying to belong. And all the while you're floundering. So, I can't tell you how many times I didn't want to be half white. There were times I didn't want to be half black. I was like, damn, can I be one or the other? But it wasn't the case. So growing up, a pregnant prostitute is no good to a pimp. So my dad pretty much, washed his hands of us, and I would see him, 3-4 times a month, maybe, if he came and picked me up, if he followed through. But my mom and I, we grew up poor. I call it U.S. poor, American poor, because there's a big damn difference between growing up poor in this country and somewhere else.
Growing up poor in the U.S. is privilege, possibly, in other third world countries.
Yes, exactly. So
you had electricity.
Actually, we didn't.
Maybe some days you didn't have electricity. Fair enough. I was hesitating before saying that, actually.
No, there were times we didn't have water. We didn't have electricity. I will say we had a roof over our heads, but we didn't always have water, electricity, or food. I always make the joke, my mom and I never had these 4 things at the same time: money, food, electricity, or water. We were always missing 1 or 2 of those things, man.
Teaches you how to juggle things, I guess, and balance different things in life.
Man, and notice I didn't even bother putting telephone on there. That was the ultimate luxury. There's no telephone. But yeah, I grew up poor, man. I was in and out of juvenile prison 3 different times, and I'm very specific when I say this: juvenile prison. People have to stop saying juvie and juvenile detention. They're trying to make it less than what it is. Man, it's prison for kids. The only difference is you're under 18. That is it. But it is prison. And I was in and out of there. I was sexually molested by one of my dad's prostitutes at the ages of 6, 7, 8 years old. She used to force me to perform oral sex on her. If I didn't do it right, she'd smack me in the face, punch me in the head, tell me to do it right. I was abandoned with 3 of my half brothers and sisters for 3 weeks in a house. No one knew we were there. February, Dayton, Ohio. I was supposed to be in school. No one came looking for us. No one knew we were there. I'd go down to the store, steal food, and bring it back so my brothers and sisters could eat. When I got reunited with my mother at the age of 15, she took me to school to register. So I'm 15. I'm supposed to be a sophomore in high school, and they're registering me for these classes. And the counselor says a word that I had never heard before. She goes, "Okay, you're supposed to be in geometry." Man, I had never heard the word before, let alone know what it was. And so I get into these classes. 6 weeks later, I got all D's and F's. They figure, okay, this kid's not too bright. My mom takes me and has me tested. I'm testing on a 5th and 6th grade level. Needless to say, my senior year rolls around. I don't have enough credits. I don't graduate. I end up having to get my GED during summer school. Never went to college. Here I am.
And here you are, just to make sure people realize who you are as well. And then we'll go into success, because this is not the success. But just to say, the CEO of Scribe, a top publishing company, former president of a software business, ranked as the #1 CEO in the US by a publication, top culture builder in an organization, author of 2 books, including most recent book. Okay, success. Walk me through it. Give me your definition right here, because honestly, I'm dying to hear it. I really am.
So in between everything that I just shared, when I was 10 years old, my dad had decided to take the pimp game down to Houston, Texas. And on one occasion, my dad was driving me through an ultra affluent neighborhood called River Oaks. And, 10, 15, $25 million homes. And he didn't say anything. I don't know if he was driving through there for himself or if he was driving through there to show me, but, no words were spoken. But what it did is it showed me possibility. And I had never seen homes that big. I didn't even know things like that existed. So it showed me what was possible. And herein lies part of the blessing that I've looked back up on and realized. If you're born into a 2-parent home, you're middle class, upper middle class, and maybe both your parents went to college and maybe they both work, or maybe one stays home, whatever the case may be, you start to develop what you're around, and you see, okay, so here's the routine. Go to school, get good grades, go to college, buy a home, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, make a little bit more money, buy a bigger house, go on 2-week vacation. So the beauty for me was I never saw the middle class. I was American poor and knew what it was like to live in poverty, to not have food. And at 10 years old, I got introduced to 10, $15 million homes that one family lived in. The beauty in that is I never knew what the middle class looked like. So I just went from, okay, I'm poor. I want to have one of those one day. I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was going to do to get it. But that became the mission. I wanted one of those big homes.
But
So
why do you think you had that mission? When I wonder if your 22 other siblings, let's say, would have seen those homes and they didn't say, I want that.
Think of it this way. We can speak right now. I really appreciate that question because I've been high on this lately. It's really bothered me. So think about this right now. This is going on right now, current, this very minute moment. If you live in Chicago on the south side or west side, Chicago is so bad right now, it's been nicknamed Chirac. So if I'm a five-year-old kid up to the age of maybe 15, 16 years old, and every day I'm seeing murders, shootings, incarceration, poverty, drug use, and this is what I'm seeing every day. Think about how basic this is right here. Where does a kid learn growing up in that they could one day be a forest ranger? I mean, if you think about this, a forest ranger, the average starting salary for a forest ranger is about $40,000 a year. But if I'm growing up in Chirac, I don't even know that a career out in nature with trees, fresh air, I don't even know that exists. So the problem that you have, and to your point, is how am I supposed to aspire to become something when I don't even know what's possible or available to me? So when you say that, what the big difference was for me is I actually got to see those houses. And I'll take it a step further, man. Think of this. If you're a 13-year-old little girl and you're living in a low-income community, public housing, and you live with your grandmother who had 4 kids by 3 different men, and your mother lives in the same apartment, and your mother had 5 kids, 4 different men, what do you think is going to happen to the 13-year-old little girl? So the problem that you see with a lot of individuals in the low-income communities is we just don't know what's possible, and that becomes a major roadblock. People can say, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Man, I had holes in my shoes. I didn't even have
that doesn't help.
Right. And think about it. I got to have boots to pull myself up by the bootstraps. I didn't even have boots, man. So I think it's a bullshit comment when I hear stuff like that.
I hate it too.
Because how am I supposed to aspire to become something when I don't even know what's possible?
There's something around the resilience that you had that you may not want to admit up to, but it's that was truly unique and special.
It's taken me years. I always had this belief that I did it. I'm not special. Other people can do it. Okay, so over the years, and I'd say probably within the last 4 or 5, I've taken a little bit of ownership and said, okay, maybe there is a little something different about me. But again, I got to keep coming back to this point of it. So I mentor high-risk youth. And so these youth are coming from the juvenile prison system to the halfway house back into society. So I go in and I ask these boys, I said, okay, tell me the difference between rich and wealthy. And they kind of looked at me like, well, what's the difference? And I said to them, I can spend rich. You can't spend wealth because wealth is generational. And again, they didn't know the difference. So then we went a level deeper. Watch this. I said, okay, tell me who you all think is wealthy. And of course, you hear Lil Wayne, you hear Drake, you hear, you get a LeBron in there. And I said, okay, let's go with Drake because everybody here knows who Drake is. Great. I said, on Drake's best day, and I'm probably giving him a few extra 100 million when I say this, but on Drake's best day, he's worth $600 million. I said, nothing to sneeze at, a lot of money. I go, but and we're here in Austin. I said, how many of you know who Michael Dell is? Because he's here, Dell Computers is here. So some of them knew. I said, well, let me explain this to you. Michael Dell is worth $53.6 billion. Drake is the 0.6 in his wealth. I go, so when you're going to think big, because it takes the same amount of effort to think small as it does to think big. But the problem is no one's explained that to them. No one, you see Drake and like entertainers, rappers, athletes, and let's really boil that down. Man, the percentages of people who will be a rapper, an athlete, and I don't want to step on anybody's dream. Go get your dream. Do everything you have to do to get your dream. However, no one told me the power of entrepreneurship. No one said that I could be an executive. And the percentages are so much greater and in your favor to be successful in business than it is as an athlete. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. He signed a 10-year, $450 million contract. And everybody's, oh my God, you have a $450. So many people are blown away when they hear that. What I look at is, okay, there's 53 players on the team. So his contract's for $450 million. So there's 52 other players that are also making millions or at least $500,000 a year for league minimum. Who's paying that payroll? Because that would be the owner. I want to focus on the owner and what money they're making, because they're making money off the stadium concessions. When games aren't even playing, they're still making money from concerts and everything else because they own the stadium. That's what I want to focus on.
I love it. And it's so important to educate, especially in poorer urban environments, around the power of business and entrepreneurship to really lift so many people up. Okay, we're going to get back to success still, because I understand the spark of it was seeing those homes. That sparked it. But that's not your definition. What is the definition?
My definition for me was and I have actually all three. I am healthy. I am happy. I tell people all the time, you'll hear people say this, I'm trying to find happiness. I can't find happiness. Well, do you know why? Because the shit's not hiding from you. Stop looking. I can't find it. It's not hiding. It's not around the corner. You have to go create happiness. And so when I hear people say it, I'm like, listen to what you're saying. I can't find happiness. Because it's not lost.
It's not going to poof out of the sky and be like, right. I got it. I caught the happiness. Yes, now I'm happy.
It showed up last night.
I was waiting. I knew if I stayed up till 3 a.m. watching reruns of, of I Love Lucy, I'd get happiness.
Exactly. So okay. I am
healthy,
happiness, and I'm financially well off. Right. A lot of my definition did come by way of wanting to succeed in business, wanting to be financially successful. I am incredibly blessed now. I live in a gated community. My kids go to private Christian school. We're able to go to Disney World and have a private tour guide. And, I come from, again, from the U.S., I come from nothing. I know what it's like to pull a half-eaten cheeseburger out of the trash and then take some of the fries to put in your pocket. So that night when you're laying in bed, you can eat some of those cold fries because there's no food at home. So I don't say, the gated community and I don't say that out of arrogance. I have worked my ass off to be able to have those things for myself, my family. So for me, I have definitely hit my definition of success. Wonderful wife. Matter of fact, today's my 10-year anniversary.
Hey!
Yeah, man.
Mazel tov. Congratulations.
Well, I appreciate it. What's very, but I always share my mistakes. Here's what's key to this. I'm 50 years old. This is the first healthy relationship I've ever had, man.
The number of people that I know that had a first relationship and it didn't work out, but changed as a person, and then are with a person, and it's an amazing relationship. It's such a key criteria. Is that the case for you, or you would not say that's the case?
Here's what happened with me. There is some truth into to what you said there, but really what happened to me is when I had made some good money and then I lost it all and I was broke.
Right.
You know,
That was in
so
the mortgage
yeah,
days. Okay.
and so 2007, I'm broke. All the money I made gone, and so matter of fact, I always make the joke I was negative broke. But what was key is I had a conversation out loud with myself in the mirror, not this, talking to myself in my head out loud. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and I say, man, you're just like your dad. And I could not, I didn't respect women. I was a monster in relationships. I was so just
I
derogatory,
mean, you had no model. You
mean.
had absolutely no
Well,
model to look
and, and, I,
towards.
and I realized that, and I said to myself, okay, how did this happen? And I was like, well, my dad was a pimp. I saw how he treated women. Well, my mom, I never saw anyone respect my mom. Now, here was the key in that moment. So many people, especially in this country right now, then want to fall back and say, oh, well, no, I didn't have any examples and it wasn't my fault. So for me, I said, nope, here's why. Now, what are you going to do? Because
Right.
there's no blame.
Right.
That's what I was born into. Okay, so
Right.
but it is up to me now to
Right.
change and go to where I want to go. So yeah, I don't
I think
do.
something about you, JeVon, which really is incredible, is there are some people that have a strong external locus of control and other people with a strong internal locus of control. You're like an extremist, I think, in a good way, when it comes to like internal locus control. Like, I can control my health. I'm going to wake up at freaking 3:45 a.m. I'm not saying this is not David Siegel. This is JeVon. You wake up at 3:45 a.m., which is incredible, to work out. You're going to control your health. You're going to do everything that you possibly can to control and facilitate your happiness. You can't control everything. We all know that.
Yep.
Man plans, God laughs, but you do everything you can to help to directly influence things.
Man, I live by this. Control what you can, because you're right. You can't control everything, and at the end of the day, none of us are really in control. But control what you can. I can control getting up every day at 3:45 and going to the gym. I can control that. When the alarm goes off, and here's really what it hit me. I don't know, maybe back in my 20s. Life is really choices. And you every day, it starts with the first thing. When you wake up, you have a choice. Am I going to wake up positive or am I going to wake up negative? I don't care if you're on death row. You have a choice when you wake up on how you're going to see the day. And so what I figured out is, okay, it is up to me to choose how I'm going to approach everything. Am I going to go all out? Am I going to go all in? Am I going to be negative and see the world from a negative perspective? Or am I going to see the greatness of the world? Even now, man, I turn on the lights at home. To this day, I smile because I'm like, there was a time period where I turned on flip the switch, it didn't turn on.
My first home that we lived in for the first 10 years was a ranch. It was a small ranch house. And, for a long, long time, for many years, every time I walked up the stairs, I felt happiness. I was like, I have more bedrooms. I have more space. And it just gave me that happiness. And I think part of that was also that I feel like I created it. It wasn't like my parents gave me the money. I created it. When I graduated from college, my parents were like, that's it, you're off. And I haven't gotten, any money from my parents really since then. And that was very important to my definition for me of happiness. Being able to do that. So I love your three areas: health, happiness. For me, I'll just share in case you're remotely interested, maybe our listeners are. My one statement on success is finding joy in your day-to-day life while still setting yourself up for medium to long-term happiness. Because if you're always waiting to find happiness in the future, that's not good.
No.
And if you're just looking at hedonistic life and just joy in this second, joy in that second, that's not good. But you need to have that joy day to day. And to me, that the amount of time that you're able to do that to me is successful. And anyone can define joy however they want. And can define medium to long-term happiness in the way they want. But I happen to be a big, health is a subset of happiness, wealth is a subset of happiness. And I just love all the work that you've been doing in helping so many people.
Man, I'm telling you, choices in health. Think about it. I just heard this phrase about 3 weeks ago. Man, it is so true, and maybe it just hits you more when I'm 50 now, and maybe it just hit me different. But it said the healthy person has many desires, the sick person has one. And I was like, oh shit, that's the
Wow.
truth. And
Wow.
that really hit me, like,
Yeah.
because I am healthy, I'm able to have many desires. But if I've got stage 3 cancer, and I've got 3 young children, that, like, I got one desire: get healthy so I can be here for my family. And that, man, that just spoke volumes to me, that,
Beautiful.
okay, if I've got my health, man, everything else is my choice to figure out, okay, what are we going to do?
And JeVon, when you say health, I think both physical health and also mental health. I think they're
Yeah.
both, and I think they're incredibly related. I remember hearing a therapist talking, and he said, before I give prescriptions to someone, I'm not saying people shouldn't have prescriptions, by the way. I say, take up running, take up going to the gym, start exercising. The natural chemicals that happen in one's body when you're
Yeah.
able to take care of yourself physically has tremendous value in all other aspects of life.
Huge, man. And it's interesting too. You look at our society right now, our country. We say mental health, and most people, when they hear the term, think of it in a negative perspective. Oh, my mental health right now. Oh, I need a mental health day off, and it's got a hint of negative tone to it.
Right, like
And
pejorative. Yeah.
what I find interesting is, you take the word mental off the front and you just say health, everyone thinks of positives, being in shape, and so that it's mind blowing to me, because mental health is also a positive. You can mentally put yourself in a negative mental health state by constantly worrying about shit you can't control, being negatively influenced by continuously watching the news. Even this one really irritates me. You'll hear people bitch and complain that they aren't where they want to be in their career, but you'll hear some of these same people tell you that they binge watched Game of Thrones Friday through Sunday, never left the house, ordered DoorDash, and watched episodes 1 through 38. And I sit there and I say to myself, okay, when's the last time you heard anyone say, man, we binge watched our 401k all weekend, and how we're going to retire, and our investment strategy? You don't hear that. But you hear that someone, what do you get at the end of Game of Thrones? Not a damn thing. And so they wake up, or 6 o'clock Sunday night, they're pissed. They don't like their career. I don't want to go to work. And they start blaming other things. And my last piece on this, we've got 115 people within our company, and everyone knows this. Do not dare ever say, thank God it's Friday. Because if you're trading 2 for 5, you got to go. You're
Nice.
clearly not happy.
You
So
got to live for your day to day, not just the weekends.
exactly.
You're this
Thank God
weekend
it's
warrior.
Friday.
Oh,
That's
terrible.
horrible. Thank God it's Tuesday. Thank God you woke up this morning. And so it's just amazing how we, as people and humans, will look at different aspects of our lives, and won't take responsibility, don't realize there are choices. You'll hear people say, oh, I want to lose 30 pounds. I've tried everything. No, you haven't, because if you had tried everything, you would already lost 30 pounds. And so the shit that people tell themselves. If you want to lose 30 pounds, that's going to take about 3.5 months of consistent eating habits, of going to the gym and exercising. And people say, well, I don't have time. But again, they're going to watch the sitcom that's on TV. They're going to watch Netflix. Well, guess what? Even if you don't go to the gym, take 30 minutes in your living room, do jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, whatever. And there's your exercise.
So
People
JeVon,
won't do it.
Is the issue in your mind more an issue of people don't know the goals and how to achieve those goals, or they know how to oftentimes, but they lack the discipline to be able to go and take it? I know what the answer is both, of course, but
Yeah.
if you have to say what's the greater ill that you've seen in your experience, is it the not knowing the how or not having the discipline to do the how?
So I appreciate you saying it sometimes it's both, because there truly is a piece of this where let's focus first on low income communities. If you know what a food desert is, because there's no grocery stores within your community, how the hell are you going to know what organic food is and eating healthy when
Right.
the only thing that's in your community are liquor stores, pawn shops, check cash, and convenience stores in the dollar store? So you're just and fast food, empty calories, empty calories. And so you don't even know what healthy eating habits are. So there is a component there. But in our country, the greater piece of our country is the middle class. If you can get on your phone and watch it, the average person spends over 2 hours, it's almost 3 hours a day on social media. If you can do that shit for 3 hours a day, you can figure out what healthy eating habits are. You can
Right.
figure out what to do. So if you're one of those folks that fall in the middle class, lower to upper, no excuses. That there is responsibility, discipline, routine, consistency. And so again, so many people don't want to take responsibility. They blame it. Well, I've got children. Oh, well, I work 50 hours a week. And again, people don't want to hear this. They get mad at me, think I'm an arrogant asshole when I say this. I got 4 kids. I have the honor to serve and support our company. And so I've got children. I work 50, 60 hours a week, but we all have the same 24. Where are you going to find that time to work out, or where are you going to find the time to make sure you have the eating habits? And man, here's the key, because I always share my mistakes. Just like I said, I couldn't hold a relationship. At my height, I was 297 pounds.
Wow.
And I didn't blame anybody, man. I chose.
By the way, for those listening and not on the video, he is definitely not 297 pounds now. Just in case you're wondering. That's incredible. Wow.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say. So now I'm 208. So I'm 208 pounds. But here's the key, man. I chose to go to the drive-thru. I chose to eat the Doritos. I chose to keep eating a whole half of a sheet cake. And I didn't blame anyone. That was me. No one forced me to pick up the fork and eat. And so many people will sit there and make excuses, and they're like, I'm not giving excuses. I'm giving you the reasons. Reasons is a nice word for excuses. And so take accountability, take responsibility for your actions. And it sucks in our country. It's like those two words. No one wants to talk about that.
Well, I could certainly see why you and David Goggins get along so well. Just so that people know, David Goggins' famous book and all the other work that David does, Scribe, of which JeVon is the CEO of, is the publisher of, what was it? Is this the number one?
So David Goggins had one of the best-selling memoirs of all time. Michelle Obama's got him beat. Not Bad Company there.
Number 2. That is not bad. Okay, let's just talk about your recent book also. So, Modern Leader. Give us the skinny on what it's about, because we didn't even scratch the surface on the culture that you built at Scribe. But tell us about Modern Leader.
So really, where the book came from, I have had the incredible blessing and gift to come from the background that I come from. I don't see it as a negative. Someone just yesterday, I was speaking and someone said to me, "Oh man, you had every reason to fail. If people would have completely understood if you went to prison or ended up dead, and and no one would have blamed you." And I go, wait a minute. I go, that right there is the problem with the thinking that we put on ourselves. I had every reason to succeed, because if you can get through that shit, the rest of the stuff's pretty damn easy.
Wow.
I said, so, and I said, and in fact, great. No one else may have blamed me if I would have ended up in prison or dead. I go, but I would have blamed me, because it's up to me to do it different. It's up to me to be successful. So I would have blamed me, and that's all that matters. And so I go, no, you're looking at that wrong. I had every reason to
I
succeed.
love that. I love that statement. I literally just wrote it down. That's so great. So keep going, please.
And so really what this came from is, I'll dive into it. Again, I'm 50. So in the early 90s, I was, new in my career. And at the time I was the mail boy. I was a file clerk, and I wanted more. So I put my little resume together, and, this is back before you could just upload your resume. Like, you went out and you were cold calling, dropping off resumes. And so I couldn't get a call back. I couldn't get an appointment. I couldn't get an invite. And one day, a nice white guy picks up the phone and he says, "Hey, how'd you get a black first name and an Irish last name?" Well, my last name, McCormick, my mom got it in the orphanage. I have my mom's last name. She was raised in the orphanage. We have no clue where, why, how we got this last name. Couldn't tell you. So when he said that, I was like, holy shit, my last name's Irish. And I was so excited. and that was the celebration for me. But then when I hung up, I was like, oh, they're seeing JeVon. So in that moment, I said, okay, my full name is JeVon Thomas McCormick. I said, I'm going to go by JT McCormick, because you won't know who that guy is. Man, the next week, David, blew up appointments, calendar invites, callbacks. And I'm like, wow. Now, it was bittersweet. Sweet. I cracked the playbook. I figured out how to get in.
Yeah, but the fact that that's the playbook. Oh,
bitter, yes.
More so bitter.
Exactly. Bitter. I had to edit myself to, quote unquote, get in. I can't tell you how many interviews I showed up and people were like, oh, JT? And I was like, yeah. And, well, you're not who we expected. And I'm like, well, who'd you expect? And so what's key to that is, all the way up to the George Floyd murder, I went by JT McCormick. And so I built my entire career on JT McCormick. And then the George Floyd murder happened. And man, I saw some of the most disgusting virtue signaling shit going on out there. You had people Blackout Tuesday on social media. What does that do to help advance or move forward? Nothing. And you and I both know.
I know exactly what you mean.
People were doing it just so they didn't get called out. And so then we were arguing over a syrup bottle. I'm like, what does this do? But one piece caught me. At the time, there were only 3 Black Fortune 500 CEOs. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. So I went and looked up their names. Kenneth Frazier, Marvin Ellison, Roger Ferguson, and as a bonus, the wealthiest Black man in America is named Robert Smith. So I looked at it and I smiled and I go,
these are not Black names.
Yeah, I was like, 4 very ethnic free names, if you will. And so I was like, and to your point, okay, I'm not a Fortune 500 CEO, but, we've been named the #1 company culture in America. We've been #1 place to work in Austin, #2 in Texas. I have had the incredible blessing, got named best CEO in Austin. And then I'll share this with you. A month ago, I was named Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst & Young. And who knew that would ever happen? But so what I realized was like, okay, I'm not a Fortune 500 CEO, but I've done a couple things. And I said, I'm going to reclaim my name. I'm going to go by JeVon. And I didn't do it for me because my career had been built as JT. I actually did it because I wanted every Martavius, Laquanda, Rayvante, Jesus, Rosalia, who have these quote unquote ethnic names that I know get passed over at times because of their name. I wanted them to see, and maybe one day when you enter the business world, you can work next to a JeVon and not just a JT.
And JeVon, when you started telling people that you work with, family, etc., hey, I'm back to JeVon, were people like, what? Or were they like, congrats? What was reactions?
When I explained why and I explained the story and everything, people are like, "Oh, that's amazing." It was very well received. I still get people because they knew me as JT. They'll call me JT. I'm like, man, I'll answer anything. Just don't call me broke. It's just it's but it was well received. A lot of people were very supportive by it. It's sad in many ways because I don't overlook the fact that what made the transition a bit easier is the success I've had
You're
in
the boss.
business.
So,
Right. So, but again, I did it because here's the key, and this is all of us. It says whatever we're not changing, we're choosing. And so I was choosing to still be part of the broken playbook by going by JT. So if you want to bring change, then you have to change, because if you don't, you're choosing. And so I live by that. Whatever we're not changing, we're choosing. And so that's really, that's not all of Modern Leader, but Modern Leader for me was, in business, we've operated in this broken playbook, if you will. It's a very exclusionary playbook that if you did not fit the parameters and you didn't know the rules of the playbook, you weren't getting in. And people are shocked when I share this with them. The Fortune 500 here in the United States, the 500 biggest companies in America, we started tracking that in 1955. You did not get a Black CEO to show up on that list until 1987.
Was it
30
Ken
plus
Chenault? Who was
years.
it?
He was the CEO of TIAA-CREF is
Okay.
who he was.
Sure.
And he was the first Black CEO on the list.
Unbelievable.
What's mind-blowing, since then, there's only been 13. And so again, we go back to the names and the playbook and the language and can you fit in? Do you know how to navigate corporate America in the playbook? And again, think about this: a 2-year-old who comes from the communities that I grew up in. By the age of 2, that 2-year-old has been exposed to 2,000 words. Take my children and how they've grown up. By the age of 2, they've been exposed to 30,000 words.
Wow.
So you're born into a playbook, if you will. So here's the thing: how am I supposed to get in when I don't even know the rules of the game, the language to speak? And so many people say, well, if the playbook is so broken, why did we run it so long? And I am convinced that here's my answer. I said,
Well, I don't
because
think we ran it. I think other people ran it that looked differently than you.
well, and that's what I said. I am convinced that the people who created the playbook are also the same people who created the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
Because for years, it served a certain group of people who fit the playbook model. And so why would you need to change that? But now you're starting to see, okay, it's fractured. The playbook, you got to shred it. And so you're starting to see what I call a lot of fake playbook leaders floundering, because guess what? They didn't write any pages for what's going on right now.
Well, I for one I read a little bit about Modern Leader, and I really want to read more. And I'm blown away, honestly, by the story. I always ask a series of kind of rapid fire questions, but I'm not going to ask them all. I'm going to ask only with one last question at the end, which is what I really always end with, which is, you've already had so much of an impact in the 50 years. You're only not even halfway done, because you're with your health, you're going to be at well over 100, right? What do you want to be known for in this lifetime over the next 50 years? Love to really unpack that and conclude with that.
What hit me is, of course, for me, I want to be one of the greatest humans, one of the greatest men, one of the greatest husbands, fathers, leaders, CEOs that I can possibly be. And I'm in a position in life where I'm literally working in those arenas and doing my part. What hit me when I turned 50, though, and especially with the name change and where we are in society and everything that's going on, from diversity and all these different angles, is God has blessed me with an incredible backstory, roadmap, if you will. I am the complete opposite of the playbook. I didn't go to college. I didn't come from a two-parent home. Hell, my parents weren't even married. And so everything about me is the opposite of the playbook. And so what I've realized is I now have this deep responsibility, not obligation, responsibility.
Because you're choosing it.
Because I choose it, to teach, coach, and mentor others into, hey, here's what's possible. But not just people from where I come from, also people who come from upper middle class families who ran the playbook, because they don't even know folks like me exist. If and I tell people this all the time, corporate America is not 100% racism going on. And people are like, what? How can you say that? I go, don't get me wrong. Whole lot of racism running through corporate America in the business world. However, one cannot say that this is racist, what I'm about to share with you. If my name is Blake Wesley, and I come from a two-parent home, upper middle class, and I get to go to all the great schools, and our family summers in Maine during the summer, and I'm part of a fraternity at a school, and now I've got my boys, Steve and Jeff. And so Blake Wesley graduates college, I get my MBA, and I work my way up. And now I'm the CEO of a big company. And now I'm tasked with surrounding myself with my executive team. Well, immediately I'm going to say, oh, my boy, Steve. Steve's the CFO over at XYZ. Let me call him up. Hey, Steve. Hey, man, I got promoted. CEO, what's up? Hey, I need a CFO. You want to get on the team? Steve's like, hell yeah. And then Steve's like, hey, you remember Jeff? Jeff's EVP of operations over at XYZ. Man, call Jeff. So here's what just happened. There was no race involved there. I'm calling the people that I'm most comfortable with, that I grew up with, that I'm going to surround myself with, because we all know each other and come from the same backgrounds. No one's calling JeVon, who's the son of a pimp who had 23 kids with a GED that was in juvenile prison. That's not racism. That's called, these are the people I'm most comfortable with. And we as humans tend to surround ourselves with the people who are most like us. What's got to happen is people who have this privilege, and this is key, we've weaponized the word privilege in this damn country. Privilege is only a negative if you don't use it to elevate others. I have a deep privilege, given where I come from, what I now know, what I understand, what I've navigated. That is a massive privilege. And I will argue with most people, my privilege is actually greater than the person who comes from the two-parent upper class middle home, because what I know about this country from the bottom to the top, they don't know. And so privilege is not a negative. It's only a negative if you don't use your privilege to elevate others. I have a deep responsibility to help elevate others.
Wow. You have elevated so many people in your time. I am just like excited for the third book and the fourth book and the movie. And I'm just excited to see where you take the, I was going to say where the world takes you, but no, where you take the world, right? Over the next 50 plus years. And thank you so much for being on Keep Connected. I feel connected to you, and I know so many of our listeners do as well. So thank you.
Oh, my man, I appreciate it.